This is Coder Radio, episode 593 for October 29th, 2024. Hey, friend. Welcome in. This is Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show. It takes a pragmatic look at the art and the business of software development. Honestly, the whole world of technology, because it impacts all of us, you know? My name is Chris, and that guy over there, that's Mike. Hey, Mike.
What's up, Chris?
Oh, I'm pretty good, you know. Everything's running real smooth here. I got Linux on a bunch of machines. I got no Wi-Fi problems at all, so I'm just feeling real chill. How about you?
Well,
how are you doing?
Okay, so I just want to say it wasn't me.
What?
My wife and sister-in-law, they had a little brunch, and I decided it would be smart to get a little work done.
Sure,
A little biz dev on the laptop at the kitchen counter.
Yep.
While they're chatting and, kind of chatting with them. And I did not realize that there was a full pint glass of a Bloody Mary there.
No, you're kidding me. No, come on.
So my MacBook is at the Apple Store presently. Yes.
No.
Thank God for the accidental damage. I see. This is why I saved this for the actual show. Why I am on Linux. I am.
Inappropriate?
So I have taken a survey of Linux once again on the Cosmic Desktop that we'll talk about later. But both of my Linux machines, my beloved HP Dev 1 that I'm on now, even though it has far less memory than the other one, and my Pangolin have literally a fifth of the Wi-Fi bandwidth. Like when you do any speed test, pick your test, speedtest.net, Google, Microsoft Edge's weird speed test, any of them, than my MacBook. And
low throughput, huh?
Well, I've done the, go into Vim and change the power save setting, force 5 gigahertz. I've done it all. And nothing seems to be working. And this is one of my primary complaints about desktop Linux, is that the Wi-Fi
is so crazy, yeah,
significantly slower. So, am I wrong? You're the Linux guru. I should mention it on the other machine, on the Pangolin. It's a clean install of Pop with Cosmic, right? So that the alpha. And on this one, I just did the, because you can install the Cosmic desktop separately. So I just did that over because I have all my, I have my work. This is my travel laptop, right? So I don't have to reconfigure everything. I could kind of just use it as a stopgap. So anyway, that was my little disclaimer. But yeah, so is it me? Am I the identifiable problem here?
Stay a while and listen.
I think it's sort of like how a Mac user over the years, like if you've run a Mac for a long time, you optimize all of your peripheral buying for Mac compatibility. Like you'll pay the extra, $30 for a keyboard that's got the damn command key on it instead of a Windows key. You optimize your gear, and as a result, everything works together. The same is really true for Linux as well. Over the years, I've just sort of self-selected for routers and Wi-Fi chipsets that seem to just work, just through experience, I guess. So these days, no, I don't really have that issue. In fact, Wi-Fi has been really, really solid for me for, maybe eight or so years now. But it does represent the typical kind of edge cases I think you can get into, because I don't know what Wi-Fi chipset you have, but I have, and I don't know if I'm experiencing it right now on 2 workstations or just one. One may be another network issue, or it may be the same problem. There are regressions that get introduced to these drivers over time, or there's code that changes external to the driver that introduces regressions to how the driver functions. And so something that was this blessed open source piece of code that's just baked into the Linux kernel and just works out of the box, hallelujah, doesn't necessarily work 5-6 years later. And I've had 2 systems now where like my Ethernet port doesn't work, or it drops. It drops every, maybe 3 times an hour. And so while my Wi-Fi has been remarkably solid, the edge case that I'm running into is that, ironically, my Ethernet has not been super solid. And now in a couple of different systems. And these are boxes that are, years old, that in previous kernels didn't have problems, that now have problems. I haven't changed anything. It's possible the ports are going up, but one of them was a brand new Thalio, so I doubt it. And it's kind of like there are these weird edge cases out there that you have to kind of optimize around by doing over time, or by buying specifically like a framework laptop or a System 76 laptop that's only going to run Linux. But what kind of hardware are you dealing with that's having Wi-Fi issues? Is it like Intel or
it's so the hardware are an HP Dev 1 and a System 76 Pangolin. They're both designed for Linux, right? I think we should just, for folks who don't know, the Dev 1 was their partnership, I guess, with HP to build like.
And that was an AMD box, right? So I forget the chip, the Wi-Fi chip.
It's an AMD, but I could look.
Yeah,
that's the one I'm on right now. So let's see. It's an AMD Ryzen 7 Pro. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe there's something I've done to offend the Linux gods on the Wi-Fi side of things.
And the MacBooks don't have this problem.
No, the MacBook's getting 500 down.
What if you put Windows on that? Does it have a problem?
Well, it's a ARM MacBook, so.
I mean like on if you put Windows on one of the Linux machines, have you observed any problems?
I never have.
Okay.
The one does have Windows on it, but it's in a VM because it's like a client, like it's the environment we're upgrading. So my point is, if it's in VM, so it's using the Linux, right? Because it's just passing through.
And which version of Pop or Ubuntu is it? Current or
most recent, whichever one you get with. Well, let me answer that question because that might be different because the other one's a clean install.
It's so like this is part of it, right? There is this element to it, and that's why I think DHH was kind of onto something by just encouraging people framework and this version of Ubuntu and just stick with that for a while.
Let me see.
Yeah, I think this is where one day Pop could shine. If they could
2204 LTS on the Dev 1.
Yeah, okay. I mean that's pretty good. That's not like that shouldn't be a problem, especially with the hardware you're using. There should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not like a deal breaker, right? Because again, this is mostly my travel machine. Just because it's smaller, a lot less money. I like the encrypted hard drive thing, though you can do that on Mac too. But it was very noticeable because I had to do like a bunch of big updates to repos. I was like, this is really slow.
That stinks. I think the starting place, and I'm trying to remember if Network Manager would tell you this, but I would want to know, like, what channels are you on? Are you on 5 gigahertz? What does the Wi-Fi software stack think? Is it on 2.4? Like, what is it thinks happening? And that's probably where I'd want to start. And then if it came back and said, yeah, you're on 5 gigahertz, you should have 120 meg, whatever it says, and you're not getting that, then I might start thinking like TCP packet size. I might start thinking something with networking. But if you get back a report that says you're on 2.4, something like that, then I'm going to think maybe the Wi-Fi driver is the problem. So some digging. Could always, go to Claude, tell Claude, hey, I'm having these problems.
That's right.
Here's my system. Here's my hardware. What's the problem, Claude?
Or you do what I would do and you mail it to Denver. You're like, here you go. I don't know.
Can you
I
fix
broke
it? Microsoft, speaking of Claude, Microsoft announced today that they're integrating, Copilot's being renamed to agents officially.
Oh, God.
And the agents are now going to be implicitly integrated into the tooling. He used this weird verbiage. It's like you can't get it out or something. Anyways, and they're opening up. They're divorcing from their monogamous relationship with OpenAI, and they're bringing in Claude, and they're bringing in Gemini as available backends for the Microsoft agent tooling. And I just wonder, Mike, if things were going great and OpenAI was happy and Microsoft was happy and everybody was making money, do you think Microsoft would have opened it up so soon to Google in particular? It seems like it's part of, I don't know, maybe another sign that the relationship isn't as tight. I know this was kind of expected to some degree, but still, if I'm just thinking about this from a relationship standpoint, seems like a sign maybe things aren't as good with OpenAI.
Yeah, I think we know that they aren't, right? Because they hired a bunch of bankers and lawyers to negotiate a deal. It seems pretty clear that OpenAI is trying to trigger that we can do whatever we want once we create AGI. So they're just running as hard as they can to be able to claim that.
Interesting that they didn't do like some sort of llama integration though, or some other one. Like Google Gemini to me sticks out because just this last couple of days it came out from Microsoft. They let their lawyers just put it all out there that Google has been launching shadow campaigns against Microsoft in the EU to discredit the software giant to regulators. And the Microsoft lawyer made a blog post about this. They put out a press release saying that Google is intentionally trying to influence policymakers and mislead the public. And this is like calling them out right there publicly while also signing an agreement with them to integrate Gemini into their core tooling. That doesn't strike you as just sort of a bizarre twist of situations?
Is it possible Microsoft thinks that the Google option is better?
I don't know if it is, to tell you the truth. I've tested them all. Claude, Sonnet integration, that makes sense, especially for development tools. Gemini? I don't know. Maybe people out there tell me if you've had other, but so far for me, Gemini's sort of been the one I don't like. I even pay for the Pro because it's through the JB Google Apps thing.
Yep.
It hallucinates. It constantly tells me the wrong stuff about even stuff that's on YouTube. I'm not impressed with the output it has at all. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But it is the end of the monogamous relationship with OpenAI and the tooling one way or another. Coder.show/membership. Put your support on autopilot and support the program. And you don't have to hear this spot anymore either. And you get the Coderly report. Now, for everybody who's already signed up, thank you so much for supporting the program. And for those of you who do boost in, we really appreciate you too. Just as of 2 years ago, the Coder program was sold out with 2 spots. There was even some time in the past where we had 3 spots, 3 advertisers per program. Now we have this moment where I just kind of get a moment with you to tell you what's going on. And things have really shifted. And unfortunately, the community support has been tapering off for about the last month on the Coder program with a couple of spurts here and there, but the trend line is down. And when the Coder radio program shut down a few years ago and we thought it was all done, it was the outpouring of support and passion for the show that got us going again. And I know this podcast, it isn't for everybody. There's literally people that write in and say, I wish you guys would just only talk about development, do code reviews, do a podcast about code reviews. There's others that love it when we talk about the business stuff and the technology stuff. I don't know. It's maybe not the best podcast in terms of market fit, but for the people that like it, I know they really like it because I heard from them when it went off the air. I'm hoping that passion, that support can come through now and keep the Coder Radio program going. I'm hoping that we can see more people step up. If they haven't become a member yet, but they've been thinking about it, maybe consider doing that. Or if you've been meaning to send that boost in or get that set up, now would be the time. Fountain.fm is the easiest onboarding. It's all hosted by them. It's really simple to connect in and get the sats and send off a boost right away. But there's also completely self-hosted solutions, totally like under your control, running on your own infrastructure, and everything in between. So there's a lot of flavors there. You can find a bunch of great apps at podcastapps.com. Or if you just want to put your support on autopilot, you just go to coder.show/membership. However you do it, we really appreciate the support. It's the only thing keeping this show going. And we could use a little bit more support out there from the audience. If you've been thinking about doing it, now would be a great time. And thank you, everybody who does support the show. I want to remind everybody that the podcast is live on Tuesdays, typically noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And we also have a show chat room, coder.show/matrix. And if you're in there, you'll find out when we're going live. And if you have a Podcasting 2.0 app, well, we're live in your app, so you'll know when we're live as well. And we'd love to have you hang out with us. We got a great crew today. And we'd love to have you to be part of that. Just gives it that special live feeling. So, the cat is out of the bag. You have been living on the cosmic desktop from System 76 for a little bit here, and I'm wondering how the adventure has been.
So, there is a lot to like here. If you're familiar with regular old pop as GTK, GNOME, or GNOME, depending on how you pronounce that, implementation, you're going to find a lot of it familiar. It keeps the what I think is very good tiling solution, the good keyboard-based workspace and tile management stuff, all good. I was a little surprised to see that they wrote their own terminal emulator, but they did, so cool. I'm still gonna use my Warp because I love Warp, but I'm having a little bit of trouble figuring out what they're going to do in terms of long-term support. I know System 76 has made a bunch of statements, but this definitely seems geared toward basically your Mac OS switcher. I mean, it's not super Mac-like, but it has, okay, well, you're going to need this, so we're going to build in a good one, right? You're going to need that, so we're going to build in a good one. Still loving the flat packs, which I have mixed feelings on, but, let's not fight about package management if we can avoid it. So I like it. It's definitely, I think what I like about it is it's very opinionated, which, sometimes, and again, I'm trying to not bait the trolls here, but sometimes on the Linux side, I get the feeling that you can, they're giving you the flour, the icing, and the chocolate, and and the eggs, and you have to bake your own cake. This is like, no, right out of the box, you've got a pretty clear way you can go, and you will be up and running relatively quickly.
I think it's bake your own cake, or it's like the total 180 of that, which is, this is for this idealized new user that we think exists out there, and so we have solved these problems that we've imagined up for them, and this is our distribution that can be installed for anybody. And it's like all the other direction. And nobody has really just come right out and said, we're going to make the desktop for developers, and we think power users are going to like that too. And I think that's, it doesn't exactly define the mission of Cosmic, but I think it's not an unfair way to define it.
Yeah, I think it's good. I'm interested to see where it goes. It's only an alpha, but like I said, if you're familiar, the nice thing is if you're familiar with Ubuntu, with Aptitude, and do we still call it Aptitude?
You got Aptitude is one of the tools, yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty much good to go. I had a few weird things that seemed like regressions from regular Pop. One was, if I recall correctly, in good old Pop, you could just like double click a deb and install it.
You could probably install gitdeb or gitdebi, and then I think it's called, and then associate that with .debs.
But it seems like weird that wouldn't come with it, because it basically did the weird Apple thing where it unarchived it, right? And you could see the contents of it. I don't know. I think it's pretty good. I haven't had any performance issues, compared to regular old Pop. I'm curious how deep they go on being different with Cosmic.
Have you had any crashes?
It has not crashed at all.
Wow. So what I find to be just so impressive about that, because I've tried it too, and it was also quite stable. They've written all of this. This isn't.
We should mention it's in Rust, most of it.
Yeah. This isn't a port of GNOME. This isn't a GNOME theme. They wrote like the tooling, the display stuff, the way the fonts are rendering, like the standard widget kit. They've created all of this, and they're doing it with a modern set of tooling as well. And the fact that it is as remarkably well done and solid in an alpha right now has kind of made me change my tune. It seemed like an impossible task 2 years ago when they announced it. It just seemed like the scope of trying to be a modern Linux hardware vendor and also create your own entire Linux system, let alone just your own desktop spin on top of Ubuntu, but your own entire experience. I thought that was crazy. But, a very skilled, tight team of developers has created something extremely impressive already. And I think your question is right, is how far do they differentiate with this from all the other Linux desktops? And I'm curious if you have thoughts on how and where they could differentiate from, say, GNOME or some of the, Windows or Mac even.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say, ignoring hardware, which unfortunately I think is kind of still the Achilles heel of the Linux desktop story, if you've ever used high-end Macs, right? All right, there are a few things in the software they could do. It seems a lot like, you fall into classic GNOME a lot. It kind of reminds me of the Windows, Windows 11, how you sometimes fall into Windows XP era stuff all the time. All right, this is my little pet peeve. I think Linux needs a much better native email client that isn't based on Electron.
Yeah, I agree. That is a weak spot. I've just sort of, and I hate, how I hate web apps, dude. I've just sort of given in and I just use web apps.
I just use the web app now too. But I they wrote like, okay, there's a Cosmic text editor, which is fine. It's fine. It's text edit. There's a what was the other one I was looking at? I can't remember off the top of my head, but they wrote a bunch of little apps. The terminal seemed weird that they wrote their own terminal emulator, but okay. And they didn't think, ooh, email. Everybody does business on email. And I would just love to see this design philosophy and focus on quality in a native email client. Now, this might be my pet peeve because I live on email all day. But I just hate using web email.
I don't know if it's up to. It's errs on the side of simplicity, and I don't know if there's a replacement for it. I seem to remember in the back of my mind maybe there was, but the email client that I have used just for basic email tasks is Geary.
I know I contributed to Geary once.
Yeah, we've talked about it. Yeah, so I mean it's still out there. It may have been forked at some point.
I would say it's probably the best choice. I know some of my friends will be like, Thunderbird, man, I just can't get into Thunderbird.
Yeah,
I've tried. I just can't.
Yeah. I like it, but for me, it just hasn't really stuck. I mean, I've literally tried it 30, 40 times.
Yeah.
And it's just never stuck. I agree. And then this really gets even worse if you want something that does calendar and you get the invite in the inbox, you can hit accept, it automatically gets added to your calendar. Oh, and by the way, that calendar syncs to your phone and does notifications and reminders. The more you kind of ask of this system, the kind of less options you have. Evolution is another classic.
Well, that's the
Linux
classics, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they have worked on it. They have continued to fix it up. So it has continued to evolve, and it's much lighter now. And it does do all of that. But again, that's another one that's just never stuck for me. Never stuck.
Yeah, I mean, the other issue is not Cosmic specific, but that stupid font scaling issue in JetBrains still exists. I think JetBrains needs to fix that. I know it's a Java thing. I've talked to them about it. All right. So this is tough dad, Mike, right? I understand it's upstream from you, but if you're selling any significant number of licenses to Linux people who are on higher resolution screens than, let's say, 2440, you need to fix this text scale thing. Because it's, for those who don't know, if you're on a high-res screen, the text looks super tiny. Because it doesn't handle the scaling like the OS does. It's, and I believe them when they say it's a Java problem. But you built your business on a giant Java editor, right? So fix it, maybe.
And in the meantime, I just continue to use web apps. If people have suggestions for good calendar and email that does the accept meetings and you can do all that kind of stuff.
And the answer is Google Calendar. I mean, I'm sorry, but it is.
Yeah, I mean, for the syncing part, I could use Nextcloud, but for business, I do use Google stuff. So it's just. Yeah.
It's interesting though, because we did this years ago, and we had all kinds of problems. And right now, my problem are stupid Wi-Fi problems, which I am sure there is some text file I could edit that would fix this. And that's
I also wonder if you had any USB Wi-Fi laying around and you use that for a day, if that'd be better, because that would tell you if it's a chipset thing or something.
That would be really stupid if that worked.
Yeah, I've done it. Back in the day, I've done it for sure. Because you can get those tiny ones off of Amazon in no time.
Oh, I have one. Yeah, I have one in the drawer right here. Oops, excuse me. It's this is our Linux action show.
Yeah, right. Yeah, good times. Yeah, you might consider popping that in and switching over to that one and disabling the built-in one and see if it's more stable. And then you kind of if you're screwed or not, or if it's just I don't know.
I think it would be hard for it to be a chipset, though, given that these are both machines designed to run Linux. Unless
there's some sort of driver regression, although I doubt it. Because you're not running the latest and greatest Linux. You're running an LTS, so I doubt it. It's tough. Maybe the solution is to get yourself an M4 Mac, because this week is the week of Apple announcements, and in there is the M4 Pro chip, which is up to 14-core CPU and up to a 20-core GPU, and now supports up to 64 gigs of RAM. So the M4 Pro chip is looking pretty competitive. It has their fastest neural engine ever, which can go up to 38 trillion operations per second. And they've slipped one in the new Mac Mini that was announced also today. So we have a new Mac Mini. And it has what they say is a 75% increase in CPU performance and 1.9 times faster than the M1 version of the Mac Mini. They're comparing it to the older ones quite a bit. Up to 20 cores for a GPU sounds pretty good, actually. Only a 3x improvement in speed in neural processing power over the M1, so they just don't even compare it to the M2. They added more ports, too. 2 USB ports on the front, which they were very excited. They did front ports. And then 3 Thunderbolt 5 ports on the rear, which this is the first time a Mac has ever featured Thunderbolt 5. And the Thunderbolt 5 theoretical top performance is 120 gigabits a second. So that's more than double the Thunderbolt 3 throughput. Also, they included and kept, I guess, the headphone jack on the front. So it still has a headphone jack. And it starts at $599 for the base unit. Now, you know, I look at the Mac Mini as like the bare entry point for a developer that just needs to get published in the App Store, needs to write an iOS app, and they've made it better, right? I mean, that's the reality. It's like if you've got to buy a Mac and you're going to get it new, and now for $599 you can get a pretty decent system. You know, to really get it cooking, you got to up that price. But I think as a developer entry machine, it's not bad. But there's a red flag in here, Mike. And the red flag is all of the performance increases, except for memory bandwidth, all the other performance increases are all measured either against the M1 Mac Mini or the last Intel Mac Mini from like 100 years ago. And I just find that a little red flaggy. Like the performance gains here are moderate, and what they really got was a teeny tiny little 5-inch by 5-inch cube machine. But it's nowhere nearly as fast as I think it could have been.
Yeah, but I mean, how much faster did you need it?
As fast as possible, dude. I mean, I want, you know.
You're like more.
I mean, why not if you can? I think what they're doing here, this is my bacon, of course. So I admit this is some California bacon, which unfortunately is a little spoiled by the time it gets up here. I don't know why they, I guess for environmental reasons, they don't turn the freezer on in the truck. I think this is an obvious and kind of gross way to differentiate the Mac Studio and the Mac Mini. And old Apple would be willing to cannibalize a different product in order to make another product even more competitive. You know, they wouldn't have sacrificed all the time. Maybe I can't say always, but they generally wouldn't sacrifice one product at the risk of hurting another product, even if it meant sometimes, you know, you could equip a MacBook that ended up being more powerful and better spec than a MacBook Pro, depending on this configuration. You could do it. But now they have this hard cap, and I think the next thing we're going to see from them is a Mac Studio M4 that's clearly differentiated now just because of the limitations inherent to the Mac Mini.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, so you can spec out a pretty decent Mac Mini, but I was really hoping they would take the iMac and make another iMac Pro, but they didn't. And I guess their answer to that audience is the Mac Studio, right?
Yeah. I mean, they did update the iMac as well, but it's, kind of the same. Yeah. I think that we haven't seen, so I think tomorrow, as we record, I would bet you, although we don't know, that we'll probably see the MacBook Pro with an M4 announced. The Mini, I don't know. So it's gonna be available on November 8th. You can get it with an M4 Pro, which starts at $1,400. To get it with 12 cores and a 16-core GPU, you're starting at $1,400 for a Mini. And you can up that again to the 20-core GPU, and you can go to 64 gigs of RAM, and its base is 512 at that price point. But if you say you wanted to up that to 2 terabytes just to have enough storage to actually work with any large project, and you skipped the gigabit Ethernet, and you just stuck with the regular old Ethernet and didn't add anything else.
Don't skip the gigabit. Don't do that.
No, I have gigabit, but I'm not getting the 10 gig. I could.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I'll because the 10 gig is $100 more, which is not bad price when you look at the price.
It's really
storage.
not bad at all, yeah.
So a Mac Mini now with the M4 Pro, which gives you the 20-core GPU, which I kind of have a philosophy with Apple M-series chips right now that you should try to probably get the best GPU you can possibly get because you can never change it again.
Correct.
You can never upgrade it. So, and they're not super competitive as it is. So if you get like a mid-tier, you're kind of really left behind already before you've even left the starting line. So I upgraded this to an M4 Pro, 14-core CPU, 20-core GPU, 16-core neural engine, 64 gigabytes of unified memory, and 2 terabytes of SSD storage, and gigabit Ethernet. This is not a blow-away system, especially even in a PC build world. The graphics card would probably cost a lot in a PC, but otherwise, this is 64 gigs of RAM is not crazy. 2 terabytes of storage is not crazy. And a Mac Mini that you could never touch again at that configuration, which would be just baseline for a workstation, in my opinion, is $2,800. It's almost, after tax, it's going to be $3,000 after tax and shipping. It's probably going to be $3,100. That's crazy.
That's a
And
lot.
so
that is a lot.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. When you start looking at it, I think it's a little bit weird. Like, it's going to be great at the base spec price, maybe if you bump the RAM a little bit or something and bump the storage. But if you try to make it a real workhorse, you might as well get a MacBook Pro or a new Studio, I'm guessing.
Well, and I'm sure the Studio gets the bump to M4 tomorrow, right? I mean, isn't that
or
obvious?
sometime, soon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. So we also have rumors of a smart display that looks a lot like the old lamp iMac, the iMac with the display on the arm. And it's sort of a HomePod killer. It's being positioned as it's going to be a speaker base with a photo display. And the reason why I find this rumor fascinating is because I have had the strong sense now for a couple of iOS releases that Apple is really working on this whole image pipeline where their devices analyze and create these memory moments, these automatic slideshows, and they classify everybody's face. And then if you have an Apple TV, it syncs that information to the Apple TV. And one of the things they just introduced in Apple TV 18 is this screensaver that features your albums and your faces, and it knows how to smart zoom, and it knows who's who, and takes all of that into account. And then now you also have the nightstand mode on the iPhone that if you're in the daytime and you charge your iPhone horizontally, it'll start going through a smart album of image slides, showing you different people and whatnot that you favorited and things. So to me, it seems that they've been building out this pipeline for the last couple of years to kind of discover your photos and help you surface them. And they're going to sell this, I think, as you take all of these incredible photos with your magical iPhone camera, but then you never look at them again. So we'll use artificial intelligence to surface your best moments and display them around the home. Right? Sells itself. So I think this thing's going to happen. But I think it kills the big HomePod when it launches.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea at all. I was trying to get my thoughts there, and I'm like, I would not use that.
Yeah, I might.
You might.
I might because I turned on the screensaver on the Apple TV, and it's kind of fun to look back at moments and be like, oh yeah. And it's clearly somehow selecting like the best of your best photos. Like the ones where you got the photo composition just right and the person's in focus. Maybe there's some bokeh in the background. Like it's clearly selecting these are presentation photos. And I don't know how they're doing it because it's not showing like the time I accidentally take a selfie
photo.
when
or
something. None of that's making it into the slideshow. And so what won me over was the actual presentation of it. So now when I charge my iPhone on my desk, I have it in horizontal, landscape mode, so I get the stupid slideshow on the phone too. So they got me. I might do it. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, if you've got any thoughts on the product launches or announcements, either from GitHub this week or from Apple, please do boost them in. We'd love to hear from you.
Boostagram.
But we do have some boosts to get to, and Radman is our baller this week with 50,000 sats.
Hey, Rich Lobster!
He writes, thanks for informing me and entertaining me every week. Love the show. Well, thank you, Radman, and here is a round of applause to you for getting it. If you get a little value from the show and you want to keep us going, please consider boosting in, just like Radman did. Torp comes in with 40,000 sats.
I hoard that which your kind covets.
In a prior reply to a boost I sent you, you mentioned event-driven architecture. Well, I've recently used it up in my JavaScript, and I've upped my JavaScript game, so here is some value back. Hey-o!
Boost!
Nice, Torp. That's great to hear. Thanks for keeping us in the loop. I would love to know how that goes for you. Claude, and I'm assuming it's not the AI, but the listener, boosts in with 2,222 sats, which is a row of ducks. Hello there. I'm looking forward to helping you explore ideas, solve problems, and work on all sorts of interesting tasks together. I aim to be direct, thoughtful, and genuinely engage in our conversations while being upfront about what I can't do. Feel free to ask me anything. What would you like to discuss? Oh my gosh, it was the AI!
That's the AI, yeah.
How did the AI boost in? How did that happen? Thanks, Claude, for the boost, I guess. Kersia's in with a Jar Jar boost, 5,000 sats.
Use a boost!
For reasons why legislative backdoors don't work, we don't even need to look at the recent hack. Just take a look at CVE 2014-3566, also known as Poodle. It was an attack against a backdoor built into exploitable cryptography because the U.S. government couldn't stand the idea that someone was saying something they couldn't read. I will die on this hill. You can't make backdoors the only good guys can use. Even the, quote, good guys have problems keeping out the bad guys because sometimes they accidentally hire them.
Well, and even the good guys are douchebags. Remember the Snowden exposures that half the contractors that the government hired were doing, quote, love and tell, where they were like turning on their girlfriend's cameras and like to see what they were doing and like make sure they weren't. Yeah. Good and bad is a little simple. I would just say human nature continues to be the problem.
Yeah, I agree. That's why you just like if you build it, it will get used. Maybe initially for good purposes. Time moves on, people change, leadership changes, attitudes change, and then it gets abused.
Your intentions were good, but your methods were bad. Or in this case, you're just bad all around.
Maybe. Podhome comes in with 8,100 sats.
Put some macaroni and cheese on there, too.
God, I'm so hungry.
Thank you. Barry says, I worked at a global accountancy IT firm, and with my team, I convinced management to rewrite their core app from the ground up.
Whoa.
Wow, I asked if anybody had been successful at this. He says this was so needed as it ran on Office 2007 Groove for offline sync. 2007. Ultimately, the rewrite worked after many years, though. This only works if the requirements also evolve with new technologies. Wow, I wonder if that will be our only successful story of somebody trying to rewrite a corporate app.
So far, it's the only one. And I just want to say, if you have an app that's running on legacy technologies and need to get that data into other systems, or just sync the data across systems, check out alice.dev.
I'll co-sign.
Smoke if you got them.
Amazing story, though. That is, I haven't heard about Office 07 Groove in a long time.
Yes.
You got me there.
Worth it for that mention alone. Really appreciate it, Barry. Thank you. And go check out Podhome if you want a podcasting 2.0 hosting platform. I use it and I like it a lot. Spectrus comes in with a row of ducks. 2,222 sats. Hell no. I've never been able to rewrite something regardless of how hard I work at kicking and screaming and begging. It's just cheaper to farm out the support on technical debt than rewrite it. Graph must go up to the right. New features required.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the norm, right? This is the average.
It's gotta be.
Yeah.
It's gotta be. And I mean, I hate to say that. I don't say it with glee.
Oh, my whole business model is pitched on you're probably not going to rewrite that old system. So,
yeah.
I hope I'm right. And I think I am.
Thank you for the boost, Spectorius. And we feel you. Your Cornelius, Cornelius, I got it.
Yukon Cornelius, I think.
Comes in with 15,000 sats.
I don't think you got it.
Oh, I didn't get it? Dang. Yukon Cornelius comes in with 15,000 sats.
Superior ability breeds superior ambition.
Ooh.
Well, I'm happy to say I'm the unicorn you might be looking for. I'm part of a Fortune 500 in the manufacturing sector, and we are in the middle of replacing our in-house built manufacturing execution system. Version 1 was written in the 1970s. Current version is written in Fortran. Our new implementation is replacing Fortran with C# and Angular. We are almost 10 years in now and about halfway through the 30 manufacturing plants that will be upgraded. Oh my God. 10-year migration. The first site to be converted was a disaster, but we've done so many now, they go off without a hitch. It does require buy-in from the higher levels of management, and we spent, at peak, millions a month on the project. So I hope to hear there's someone else out there getting to make an upgrade like this one. So they're a system built in the 70s using Fortran, And they have been 10 years in the migration out of that. Can you believe any company is sticking with something that long? I guess maybe they have to.
It must. Well, yeah, I can because the state of Florida is like, we're fine.
Yeah, it's incredible. That's
No
incredible.
problem.
That's a hell of a story, Yukon. Thank you for sending that in. And love to know if you have any updates in the future. Just, wow. That's almost that could be somebody's entire career, is that project.
It's that one application. Just
that's why it's just bonkers. That's just, I don't know, man. That's just bonkers. To me, at least. Swiftoid comes in with 4,301 sats. 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the way.
Nice. Wow, I really thought that AI voice was the real Chris, just riffing on the previous clip, not an AI. I've been messing around with Notebook LM. It's pretty impressive. One thing I did was feed it a draft book I'm writing, and then I had it give me a podcast summary of my book. Hearing two people discuss my book, even though I know they're not real, was a big motivator to continue writing and think about the themes a bit more. It's still about 70% reliable, but it's an interesting new way to experience an LLM. I agree with that assessment. It was interesting. I think Wes had it go through like a bunch of our shows and have it create a podcast about, some of our shows. It's just interesting to hear their comments, even though they're just, generated nonsense essentially, but it's still kind of a fascinating tool. It's one of the more interesting implementations of it. And Microsoft has launched their own podcast generation tool, and I don't think it's anywhere near as good. The voices sound fake. They have lots of artifacts. The Google one does too sometimes, but the Microsoft one has lots of artifacts. And they went with kind of like a Brit voice, but it's not like a real Brit. It sounds like an American trying to do a Brit.
oh, that's lousy.
And it's like generated. You can hear the sort of the generated sound of it, where the especially the male speaker on Notebook LM sounds like a podcaster on a podcast microphone. And so it's that one. It's just particularly one of the better ones I've seen out there. All right. That is our boost this episode. Thank you, everybody who boosts in. Thank you, Swiftway. Appreciate that. Well, it wasn't a tremendous week. We had 27 of you out there stream while you listen. And because we had a couple of shorties, we didn't stack a lot of sats that way, but we got 29,459 sats. When you combine that with the 9 boosters that we had, the total for this episode is 127,365 sats, which is kind of a stinker since the show has no advertising. But I know, a lot of things going on. It's a busy, crazy season right now here in the States with the election. But if you've been thinking about supporting the show, want to comment on something we've said in this episode or recently, or if we've missed something you'd like to hear us talk about, please do boost in. We have links to the easiest ways to get started in the States and in Canada in the show notes, but you just need to get on that Lightning Network and you need a Podcasting 2.0 app. And of course, if you just forget to do it and you still want to support us, you can always put it on autopilot. The members really did the heavy lift this episode. It was really the members that made this episode possible, and that's always a great way to support us too at coder.show/membership. Thank you, everybody who does support the show. We sincerely appreciate it. Before we run, just thought we would note in the show, so we have it in the history of the podcast, OpenAI's AGI, Czar, has quit, and he burnt all the bridges on the way out. Just lit him up. Said that OpenAI is nowhere near ready for what they're building. That, the structures they put around safety are a joke. He also says no other AI lab is ready for AGI. The world is not prepared. He's leaving so that way he can try to address this critical issue from outside of the industry, he says. After his departure, OpenAI is reassigning members of its AGI readiness team to other groups within the organization. So that restructuring comes just less than 6 months after OpenAI disbanded its safety team. So now they're disbanding the AGI readiness team as well, since the AGI czar left. My gut tells me this guy's frustrated that they were never taking him seriously, that these were always kind of just virtue signaling positions so that way they could claim this veil of concern about safety as Sam was going around and trying to scare every world leader about the power of his company to drive his valuation up. And they didn't actually need these groups. And so, this guy got frustrated. His name's Miles. What do you think of my take? Is that these were never serious positions to begin with, and as these guys realize it, they get pissed. They start to say, hey, you're not really ready for this. You're not taking this seriously. And they essentially try to want to, become like an advocate outside the industry because they were sort of gaslit into thinking that OpenAI actually cared about things like AGI readiness or AI safety. And they never actually cared. They just cared to make it look like it and scare people. What do you think?
I don't think they cared at all, right? I would have a hard time understanding how anyone would think they cared. Is that mean?
Well, I think you're forgetting that Sam put on his real super serious earnest face and sat down in front of Senate. He sat down in front of Joe Biden. He sat down in front of the French president, and he sat down in front of a lot of world leaders. I can't name them all because I don't remember. But remember, he went on that world tour and told everybody about how serious he takes AI safety and how dangerous it is and how badly we need regulation because of how powerful it is. And by the way, this is what OpenAI is doing to be good stewards of this crazy, powerful new technology. The risk is worth the gains, but that's only because we're guiding it. That's what he told everybody. So I can understand why some people would believe it.
It just feels real bullshitty, right? Like,
yeah, I kind of agree.
I'm starting to think that we should be less afraid of the Terminator kicking in our doors and blowing us away than we should be what happens when all these billions of dollars come due.
Yeah, what happens? Yeah.
Like, that's going to be a crash. It's going to be a big crash.
I agree, and I mean, I don't know, like how long. Well, that's always where we come back to is how far can they extend these LLMs? How much can they continue to get out of them? Zuckerberg thinks there's still a lot more hardware we can throw at them. OpenAI seems to be signaling they have a lot more room. Microsoft is clearly differentiating. That's how they're trying to get progress, is by bringing in Claude and bringing in Gemini and sort of pitting them all against each other. But the reality is, I think they're already up against the edges. I think that's where OpenAI is at right now. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Also, Apple Intelligence launched like today as we're recording. So there you go. Just in time.
Yeah, a product that basically doesn't exist.
I wonder how that'll go. We shall see. In the meantime, we'll keep an eye on the old OpenAI and the Apple stuff. Anything big develops, we'd probably talk about it, and we'd love to hear your thoughts too. Could be an excuse to talk about it, so please do boost in. Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you'd like to send the kind people before we get out of here?
Yeah, go to alice.dev. I'm going to be running a promotion for Thanksgiving. I haven't decided what the code will be.
Oh, but it's coming.
If you say Coda Radio, we'll count that too.
There you go. There's a code, Coda Radio. All right, y'all, you got to get out of here, It's time to go. That's your Coda Radio program right there. Now, we are live on the Tuesdays typically. At noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Keep an eye on that daylight savings. It's going to come. It's going to glance you. I don't want you to get confused. JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar also puts it in your local time. Links to what we talked about? Glad you asked. That's at coder.show/593. You'll find our RSS feed over there as well, so you can subscribe on any app you old like. Shoot. Of course, you can also find us at the podcast index. Just search for Coda Radio. I don't know. In whatever app you like, I suppose. We're just glad you listened. Thank you so much for tuning this week's episode of the Coda Radio program. See you right back here next week.